Let's have ourselves a live show. How is everybody? I am fantastic. Of course, this is the live show for March 6th, 2023. It was an absolute beautiful day here in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Of course, the spring break time is starting. And I think that the college people, wherever they are coming from, are showing up just at the right time. And so there you go. Good to see everybody that's now tuning into the chat. Hope everybody is doing well out there. I have a fantastic show planned for you tonight. Got a lot to talk about. Hopefully, I'll be taking some of your questions as well. I did not get any questions before the show started. So if you'd like to get in now, maybe you want to use the super chat function to make sure that your question gets noticed. Because you know how much I love to answer questions from you, the audience, as long as it is PG rated and not too personal. I made a promise that starting out here early in the live show tonight that I would give a shout out to my man Bentley out there. How are you doing, Bentley? I saw a picture of you today with your grandma, who is one of my assistants. And I hope you're doing well, Bentley. It's good to see you with your grandma in the picture that she posted. And I hope you have a great March here. And I hope you're doing well, Bentley. So, Bentley, shout out to you. As you are watching this live show tonight, or maybe you are watching it in the replay, I hope you will just go and give this live show a thumbs up. Please like it, share it, subscribe if you feel like it. But most importantly, give it a thumbs up. So that helps us with the YouTube algorithms. And if you'd like to go one step further, being that we are on YouTube, you can hit the join button below and get some stuff that other people do not get. And I think I'm going to be adding something to that, being that I have to update here on YouTube, being that I've kind of taken one thing away. I am going to be adding something back before the end of the month. So I'm very excited about that. I had a conversation with two of my assistants this past weekend about adding something new to people who are monetarily supporting Unfound, whether through patreon.com/Unfound Podcast or right on here on YouTube. And I did, after almost a year or about a year, I was doing those Unfound updates, and just not a lot of people were partaking in them. So at the end of February, I stopped doing them, but I will be adding something back that I think will probably be more interesting to all of you, and something that you'll be more engaged in, and something where some comments and good conversation can happen. And this will be something that I will be doing once a month, usually toward the end of the month, just like with the Unfound Nows. In fact, I have to make that newest Unfound Now public for everybody. But I'm going to start doing another monthly series that's just a little bit different. So something that it's within the category of disappearances, but something different. But I don't want to jinx it, so I'm going to keep it as a mystery for now. So please be assured that if you are a Patreon subscriber or right here as a member of this YouTube channel that although one thing, we've deleted one thing, we're going to be adding something else. So who is in here tonight? Hello, Karen. Karen gets in first before Charles. What's going on, Charles? Mark, what's going on? Hello, Marty. Marty, new Patreon supporter, new think tank member, and also on Instagram, as I saw you on there, Marty. Thanks for the message. I got back to you there. Good to see you, Marty. Twinkle, Jasmine, Moana, what's going on? Glenn, coming to us, all of us from Georgia, state to the north, or maybe it's actually Georgia, the country of Georgia, over there by Russia. I think it's the States, though. Sarah, the real, coming to us from Australia. Valerie, Kathy from California. Twinkle, Rebecca, and Katie, and assistant Cherie doing the moderating. How are you doing, Cherie? How's your week getting started off? I hope it's starting off well. And as I've already stated, Eric, Cherie, and I had a really, really good meeting on Saturday morning, and I appreciate both of them for being available and being very honest about the topics that we covered. Hello, Scarlett from Michigan. Glenn says definitely from the state. That's funny. Marty, you're very welcome. Thank you. So I just want to get a couple things out of the way. I do have a little story to tell before I get into I got a lot of news, international news, national news, true crime stuff, a lot of good conversation topics, along with a lot of unfound stuff that I want to talk about. But I do want to tell you a story, kind of funny, from last Tuesday. So the very day after the last live show from last Monday, as many of you know, because I've talked about this before, I go up to the park that's just north of me. It's called Sand Key Park. Pretty big park, and it's right on the beach. There's like the park, and then there's like the inlet, and then there is what we would call Clearwater Beach proper. I have a Clearwater Beach address, but I technically do not live in Clearwater Beach. Clearwater Beach technically is the area on the other side of the inlet. There's like a bridge out here that goes over to Clearwater Beach. And so if you ever see any pictures from spring break this time of year at Clearwater Beach, that is just north of me on the other side there. But the Sand Key is on this side, and it's only 2/3 of a mile north of me. And there's this really nice little patch of land on there that nobody else uses, that I go up there, and that's where I practice my disc golf. It's just the right width, the right length. Nobody's ever going through there. There's the little the road going into the park that's right there, but that's really about that. There's like a walking path, but there's really hardly anybody in that area, and so I really just have this patch of land to myself, and it's fantastic. It's easy to get to. You can park real close to it. Just perfect. Absolutely perfect. And I've been going up there probably for a couple years now, and I was ecstatic the first time I found it. And I know the park rangers up there. In fact, I was up there today talking to one of the park rangers. His name is Eric, really good guy. And I also know another park ranger up there. His name is Sean, and he actually plays disc golf once in a while, although he and I have not played disc golf together yet. But what happened last Tuesday, I was up there, and in this patch of grass, there's like a little gravel lane, and there is a sign there that says no parking allowed or something like that. And the reason this little lane is there is because actually the little patch of land that I'm throwing on is designated for helicopter landings. So if there is a horrible car crash out near there, or something happens down at the beach, anywhere in this area, that actual patch of land that I'm throwing on is reserved, and there's nothing that's supposed to be there. So in case a helicopter, a medical helicopter, or a police helicopter, whatever, can land there. So it's always going to be clear forever. And I just happen to throw my disc there. It's fantastic. Perfect situation. But there is this little gravel lane that no cars are allowed to park there. So last Tuesday, I'm there throwing, and some guy in a white SUV pulls in to that little area. Well, what happens is the car is right there. I'm doing my throwing. Well, it's in the way. And of course, I don't want to hit his car, but he's not supposed to be there anyway. And the sign is right there. He is facing the sign. The front of his car is less than 20 feet away from the sign. He is actually facing the sign. And it says no parking allowed. Even though there is a little gravel lane there, it's not for cars. It's not for the public. And it says it right there on the sign, which also makes it great because I can throw there and I never have to worry about anybody parking there because they're not allowed. I don't have to worry about hitting anybody because I can be a little wild sometimes. So I'm down like halfway down this patch of grass, so about 150 feet away, and he just pulls right in there. And he's on his phone, and he has it up to his left ear, and he's parked this way. So can he see me? Of course he saw me, but he was trying to ignore me. So I'm down there. I'm throwing discs toward his car. He's not allowed to be there. So I start, the way I am, and I know in these situations to not get close to the car because you don't know what's in that person's mind. What is somebody thinking? They're parked there right at a sign where it says no parking is allowed. They decide to park right there. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not going to go up and knock on this guy's window or get close to it because who knows what's going to happen. And really, my gun, I'm not carrying my gun on me while I'm throwing discs. It's a little inconvenient. So I'm not going to go up to the car because I'm thinking, wonder what's going on with this person in the first place. So I end up standing out there in the middle of the field with my arms crossed. And he's not looking at me. He's ignoring me. And I'm about 150 feet away. I'm standing there, arms crossed, kind of these like WTF poses. And I do those really well. So I threw a disc and I made sure that it wasn't going to hit him, but I wanted to get his attention, kind of nonverbal communication. Hey, I'm throwing here. You're not supposed to be here. Can you move somewhere else? Can you go park somewhere else if you're going to be on the phone? So after about 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds, he looks over at me, takes his phone, rolls it down, and he asked me, like, what's your problem? And I said, do you see the sign? He doesn't even look at the sign. He keeps his eyes on me and says, do you work here? And I asked him, do you see the sign? He asks me again, do you work here? And probably my response, you want to know what, like, this is one of the most Ed Denzel responses that you're ever going to hear. If you really want to get to know me, this is probably one of the most Ed Denzel responses, the way I argue. He asks me, do you work here? And I said, no, the sign works here. And I pointed at it again. So he says to me, he goes, and I say, I'm throwing here. You're not supposed to be parked there. Do you look at the sign? And he, not once does he ever look at the sign, but I know that he sees it. It's right there. So then he says to me, hey, I'm an off-duty cop. I said, I don't care. The sign is for everybody. Well, I'm an off-duty cop, and he starts raising voice, and then he starts pretending like he can't hear me. So I know he's trying to draw me closer to his car. I'm not doing that because who knows what's going to happen. And I said, so you're not going to move? No. All right, I'll go get the park ranger. And luckily, the park ranger's office, and like I said, I know these park rangers really well. I see them all the time. I know them by their first names. They know me. They know I do this podcast, everything else. They're great, great people. They have their hands full up there, trust me, with stories that I hear. Hello, Sweetberry. What's going on? Hello, Rebecca. So I start tromping over to, hello, CM girl. I start tromping over, and the park ranger office is probably about just 5 feet away, 500 feet away. It's just on the other side of this street there within the park. So I start tromping over there, making sure to not get too close to his car because I'm thinking, what's up? What's up with this guy? It's like he's looking for trouble. Anybody who would see me throwing there and then parks in a space with the no parking sign and everything, is this guy looking for a confrontation? So I finally get over, and just happened to be one of the park rangers is coming out of the office conveniently, and I'm like giving him the, could you come here, sign, come here. And I know him. His guy's Eric. I saw him today. Great guy. I said, I just want to tell you what's going on. Well, I turn around, and you could see the guy is now starting to back out of that spot. And so I tell Eric what happened. He goes, I'll check him out. So the guy finally does pull out, and he drives further into the park. The park ranger guy gets in his ATV. It's like a souped up golf cart. It's one of these ATVs that they use to haul things around and everything within the park. He ends up following him. So, I'm just looking out. I go back to the field, and I'm wondering, what's going on? I'm keeping my eyes peeled. Is this guy going to come around again? Is he going to park his car? Is he going to, I don't know. So I'm keeping my eyes pretty peeled. And so some minutes pass, and then finally, maybe 5 minutes later, Eric in his vehicle, he comes through the park. He's not on the road, but he comes straight from the parking lot, which is on the side, directly over to me. And I said, did you find the guy? He goes, oh yeah, I found him. He's over there. He goes, he's actually parked right near you where you are. And then I'm thinking, is this guy going to vandalize my car? But I'm thinking probably doesn't know the car is mine. But he goes, I tried to talk to him. The guy was complaining about you, Eric said. Who does that guy think he is? And I'm a off-duty cop and da 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 da. And the park ranger said, you're not supposed to park there. He's allowed to throw there. You're not allowed to park there. Well, all I wanted to do is use my phone, and I was on an important phone call, and da da da. He goes, sir, you're not allowed to park there. And so the guy started getting confrontational with him. So Eric said, I backed away a little bit. And the guy said something, all I wanted to do is go to the beach. And Eric says to him, he goes, well, if you park your car there, sir, and it was in a regular space, you're going to have to pay for it. And so the guy got all ticked off about that. He goes, but Eric says, you have a nice day. So Eric comes and, tells me this interaction he had with this guy. And Eric's like, there's no way this guy's an off-duty cop. He's too old. Because he's well into his 60s, and he's not, because he might have been a police officer at one time, but he goes, I deal with a lot of police in here and everything. I just don't think that he might have been a cop at one time. He's probably not one now, but. So what then happened is I continued to throw for a little bit, and Eric was still around there. We're talking and everything. And I said, you know what? I'm kind of out of the groove. This kind of got me out of my groove for throwing today. Anyway, I'm just going to leave. So Eric drives over there. I'm thinking maybe the guy's still over there. I get it back over to my car. The guy's gone. But in the process, what the guy did, he had this like bottle or something that he was drinking from. It was like a Mountain Dew bottle. He threw it right out into the grass by where his car was parked. Right there. And Eric's like, yeah, that figures. So Eric goes over, picks it up, smells it. Alcohol. So this guy was driving around. He has a Mountain Dew bottle, but I think Eric said it was whiskey or vodka in it. And so that guy, so that was my story from last Tuesday. It just, you're just not looking for trouble. I'm just minding my business. And I know these discs are dangerous. Even when I play in parks where people walking around, these discs are very dangerous. I'm not looking to hit anybody. I'm not looking to hit any cars or anything else. But it is amazing the issues that you run into, because I've kind of run into this before, not up there, but I can remember when I used to go throw down in Madeira Beach at the baseball place when nobody was there. People would give me crap about that, even though the facilities aren't being used at all. I'm there minding my own business. People come over giving me crap. This is for baseball, even though there's no baseball being played or anything. It's just so weird. And I think probably finding out that there was alcohol in that bottle just maybe explains everything. But he was pretty heated. He was certainly trying to bait me. He was trying to get me to come closer, pretending that he couldn't hear what I was saying, even though, as all of you know, I have a very loud voice. And I think he was trying to get me closer for whatever reason. And I know, just from my experience, a lot of course, videos and just common sense about self-defense and everything is you don't get lured in. I'm not going to become if the guy is thinking about shooting somebody that day, I'm not going to make myself an easier target. I know from all of my gun shooting, I do that. 150 feet with a handgun is a tough shot. Whereas if I would have gotten to within 50 feet of him and he pulled out a gun, then it's much more likely he would have hit me. So I stayed at that distance and did not get any closer than that. Even, I made a big circle around his car when I went over to the park ranger office. Not sure. It seems to me this guy was not a local. I'm thinking this guy was, I think he had a Florida license plate, but that doesn't mean he was local. Just kind of got the idea that he was some out-of-towner loser or something. And then Eric and I talked about it today when I saw him. And I think maybe Eric thought that he was a local. I was thinking this guy was out of town. I guess if he's a local, maybe I should be keeping my eye out for him again. But Eric said he was going to be watching out for him. And because they have the ability up there at the park to scan license plate numbers to find out who the people are. They can do that up there. So he's going to keep an eye out for him, and he'll let me know if that guy is seen in the park again. So that was my story from last Tuesday. It was just, you never know. It's just so bizarre. But I'm thinking to myself, this guy, who knows what he's thinking? He's looking for a confrontation. Obviously, he sees what I'm doing here. He's getting in the middle of it. He's ignoring the parking sign, claiming to be an off-duty cop and all these things. I said it would not be outside the realm of possibility that maybe he didn't try to shoot me, but the next escalation would probably be him pull out a gun and try to intimidate me with it. That's what those types of people do. Whereas we all know, as good, responsible owners, you only take your gun out if you got to use it. Anything else is against the law. It's called brandishing. You can't do that. That's illegal. And it should be. You only take your gun out if for self-defense purposes. But he's the type of guy, it certainly seemed like if you got into a road rage incident, he'd start waving his gun around and everything else, especially if he's drunk. So I made sure to keep clear of him. But that's my story from last Tuesday. On my personal Facebook page, I do a little part 1 and part 2 of the video. If you're friends with me on there, maybe you saw it already. Or if you haven't, you can do the video. I show the area, and then on my way back from there driving home, I did the rest of the video. So there you go. Funny now, not funny at the time. And I'm thinking, here I am, always carrying a gun all these places. And here I am now, 150 feet away from my gun. And my disc golf bag is like within 30 feet of his car. Just my luck. So there you go. That's my story. Erica, what's going on? Marcus, the guy's an off-duty police officer. He should know better. Well, he should, Marcus, but there were certainly, I think alcohol was involved, and who knows whatever else, and whatever he was doing on his phone, I don't know. Barbara, I'm glad you made it. Good to see you tonight. Thank you. The real sounds like he really put the Yahoo in the Mountain Dew. Yeah, there was alcohol in there. He was liquored up. He was a DUI. Certainly DUIing. Certainly. Probably, if he was stuck around, or if Eric the park ranger would have figured that out, I'm sure the cops would have gotten called, and he would have had to done the breathalyzer for sure. Marcus, that absolutely ridiculous. Common decency. Yeah, it's crazy. You showed quite a bit of situational awareness. Thank you, Marcus. Hello, Fishing. What's going on? Finally going on here. Hello, Fishing. Good to see you. And Rebecca, no wonder. I agree, Rebecca. Marcus, going back to your situational awareness, and maybe this is a good way to move into the true crime part of the show. I doing this podcast and doing, what we do here at Unfound is that for a long time, I've understood that I have to be more aware of my surroundings than your average person. I wouldn't say I'm paranoid or anything, but I will admit, at least for a few seconds, while I was standing there arguing with this guy, I was like, could this be somebody who I've ticked off with the podcast? Could this be some suspect that has been mentioned on Unfound over the last 280 some disappearances? It went through for a few seconds, but then I was thinking, if that was true, I think this guy would have called me out by name or something, which the guy did not do. So it did go through my mind, but doing this podcast, and maybe there's other true crime hosts that feel the same way, I don't know, but I certainly do keep, we always say at the end of this live show, what do we say, Cherie? Keep your head on a swivel. That's me. That's me. When I go to trivia, when I go to Starbucks, when I go to Publix to get food, when I go out once in a while out to some late night coffee places and things, my head's always on a swivel. It's one of the reasons I don't tell people where I'm going. Of course, some of it's unavoidable, but I've certainly become more situationally aware since I started this podcast back in 2016, because dare I say it, I think if I were in the presence of some of these people who have been mentioned, who are certainly killers, who knows what might happen? Who knows? So that is my story. And on that topic, before I move into true crime news, I'm going actually to get my concealed carry license renewed tomorrow. It's coming up on 7 years. It expires on the 23rd of this month. And so I'm actually going tomorrow to get it to redone, to re-up for another 7 years. Although it could be here in Florida that there is a bill working its way through the legislature that you actually won't need a license to carry concealed anymore. So even though I have to go get it because it's going to expire, it may be that I get it and then maybe I might not even need it. But either way, I'm going to go. I made an appointment. The way here it is in Florida, you have to make an appointment to go do that because everybody, for something like that, it's so busy. You have to make an appointment like weeks in advance, which is what I had to do. Karen says, your very first episode in Susie Live was all about transitional spaces. It was a good advice, which I keep in mind. Well, look at you, Karen. That's true. We started off Unfound 6.5 years ago, the very first episode, talking about transitional spaces. And that is something that I got from the Active Self Protection YouTube channel by John Correa. I think he does a great job over there. He talks a lot about that. Leaving, going to your car, leaving your car, walking somewhere. These are all transitional spaces. This is most likely the places where you will be attacked, abducted, carjacked. And that's why it was the topic for Susie Lau's disappearance, because she was obviously getting off that bus, going to her dorm. And of course, something happened caused by somebody. But that is spectacular memory, Karen. Good for you. Glenn says, Georgia has open carry, no license. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of open carry. I would never open carry a gun in public, ever. Just make yourself a target. Hello, Sarah. You too. All right, you're getting yours, Mark. I just don't engage people that I don't know anymore. Too many crazy people just looking for a fight. I'm too old to fight, but at least, okay. Very good, Mark. Sarah, I'm always aware of my surroundings. I remember too. Very good, Sarah. So there you go. Yeah, as far as, I know some of you are not gun people, and I'm not here to get into the topic, but I'm not a big fan of open carry. I just think bad people see your gun that you're carrying and automatically want to try to take it from you by sneaking up behind you and everything else. Whereas with concealed carry, you don't know who has guns and you don't know who doesn't. That adds a little more mystery, and I think it keeps you from being a target as a gun carrier. So there you go. Ashley, how are you? What's going on tonight? Good to see you. All right, let's move on. Let's talk the Barbara McRae episode. We had a spectacular think tank last night. We had quite a few people, maybe 12 or 13 people in the think tank, as you would expect. And if you'd like to be part of the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And in fact, we had a new member last night for the think tank, and it's Marty, who is in the chat tonight. Marty was in there. Marty, I hope you got a lot out of it. And I'm going to be getting to that, Carol. Please be patient. But in the discussion group, as far as the poll goes, this poll that I release, or I ask everybody to take part in every Saturday morning, I post it, and I asked, did Barbara walk off by herself or didn't she? An overwhelming number of you said that yes, she did walk off all by herself. In the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to be a member in the think tank, wasn't totally 100%, but close to it. Also believed that Barbara walked off all by herself. And then for the blog that I write every week at patreon.com, I also decided that she walked away all by herself. I think maybe, what gets lost in all of this is that the fact is Barbara's disappearance is very common. Not the most common type, but from my own experience with posting disappearances almost every day, I do that on Twitter, I do that on Facebook, just going down, have any disappearances happened in the past 24 hours? And if there have, I'll post the link to that article. And it's amazing how many of those are older people who have walked off, who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, have been struggling with. It's amazing what percentage that is. And all I do, if you're wondering what I do with that, is I just go to Google and I type in missing person in quotes, and then I limit the search to the past 24 hours. And it is amazing how many of those disappearances are of older people, because they have what I'm calling mental degradation, in contrast to mental illness, have mental degradation issues. So I think that played a lot, at least into my reasoning for her disappearance, why I came to the conclusion that I did. And then as far as then why hasn't she been found, I also get into that blog I get into the blog as well regarding that. We also talked about that in the think tank. And we just have to realize that, I'm going to keep saying this, is that searches are not the end all be all of trying to find people, no matter if the person is 83 or 33. And the example I gave in the blog was that, and once again, I think you should sign up at patreon.com so you can see all of my reasoning or hear all of it, because I do an audio version of it as well, that you have to get in maybe a searcher's mentality. Okay, we're here to find an 83-year-old. And automatically, what does a searcher think? Well, she couldn't have gone far. She's 83. But then searchers are out there for 2 hours and they've walked a mile, and they're out there for 4 hours. They've walked a couple miles, and they're out there for 6 hours. They've walked 3 miles. And what do they start thinking? There's no way that 83-year-old could have walked this far. This is just a big waste of time. I certainly believe that. I think that's human nature. And as was stated in the think tank, I forget who posted it, when we were having the think tank session last night, somebody had even said, yep, I took part in a search. And at some point, yep, I was wondering, what the heck am I doing out here? I was involved in a search for Stephen Kocher in Las Vegas in 2010. It was an area near that executive airport in Henderson, Nevada. And I will even admit, it was in April of 2010. So I wasn't even 40 years old yet. Wow. And at some point you start wondering, what are we doing out here walking through the desert? That obviously plays a huge role in this as well. We, of course, wish people weren't like that, but that is just part of human nature. So I think there are a lot of reasons to understand why Barbara has not been found yet. That does not mean that she is not out there. It's just that she hasn't been found yet. She's probably in the area, and they just haven't looked. They might have missed her. And maybe some people weren't being as thorough as they should be. A lot of different reasons. And we shouldn't automatically default to foul play. Even though Todd does not seem like the best guy in the world among his family, doesn't have the best reputation. But there was nothing that I heard in the interview that leads me in that direction myself. Twinkle says, you're welcome, Carol. Twinkle says, I encourage all of you to try out the think tank. It's enjoyable, and I've learned a lot there. There you go. One more person. Thank you, Twinkle. Pumping up the think tank, please. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a good way to support what we do here. And it's a nice little family we have over there. Sarah says she walked away. Ashley, I so wish I could try it out, but I don't have any money. I'm sorry to hear that, Ashley. Hoping 2023 will be a better year for you. Shri says, Ashley, you can like the episodes and share the content. Yep, there's a lot of other things you can do, Ashley. I understand in these times of inflation and everything else. I certainly understand that. And you can join, as Shri is saying, for only $2 a month. You at least get to read the blogs that I write. I think you'll get a lot out of that. And there are quite a few to read. It'll keep you busy for a long time, I'm here to tell you. Yep, all forms of support, as Cherie is saying. So that is the disappearance of Barbara McRae. I think we also have to remember this is a fairly new disappearance. We've covered a few of those recently. Bowman, for example, also recently from 2021. So we have to just remember that these are fairly new, at least in Unfound's world, new disappearances. And it would not surprise me that a year from now, if Barbara is still missing, we might have more facts. Maybe more people will come forward and say, oh, yeah, I did see her. And they're believable. We'll just have to figure that out. Or maybe somebody will come across a piece of Barbara's clothing or something. That is, of course, if she isn't found live or deceased in the meantime. But it's a very common type of disappearance. We, of course, back, when was it? Must have been 2019. We covered the disappearance of David Hardy Jr., very similar, except he was in a car. His car was found. He was nowhere to be seen. And that was a situation where, even though he'd been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, his family was allowing him to continue to drive around, even though he had gotten lost before. And we talked about that in the think tank as well. Very, very difficult situation. Says, where are the blogs? Well, they are on patreon.com/unfound podcast. If you'd like to read them, Sarah. That is at least for $2 a month. All right, moving on. Let's go to some national news. And being that Carol asked about this young man who went missing in Louisiana, why don't we just go to that right now? Nathan Millard, Millard. And this was on my agenda, so thank you for bringing it up, Carol. I'll just read the short article, and I'm going to give you my impression of it. Seems to be a disappearance that got some national attention. He's married. He has some children. He's in Baton Rouge, I guess for business, and he was out. And I'm going to read this article, but he was seemingly going to be walking back to his hotel where he was staying. Never seen again. And this has been, a few weeks now. He went missing on February 22nd. So it's been a couple weeks, more than that. The body of a Georgia man. So there you go, Glenn. The body of a Georgia man who went missing in Baton Rouge, Louisiana has been found. Police say Nathan Millard, 42 years old, was found dead Monday. So that's today. At 3:34 a.m., so that would be 4:34 a.m. in the east, in the 2900 block of Scenic Highway. Family members confirmed his body was found in a vacant lot. Millard was reported missing while on a business trip to Baton Rouge. He was from Walton County, Georgia. Millard was last seen around 11:30 p.m. February 22nd at Happy's Irish Pub on 3rd Street in the downtown area of Baton Rouge. Texas EquuSearch said law enforcement got a call early Monday morning from someone driving by who smelled a foul odor. Turns out that Millard's body was rolled up allegedly in a carpet and covered in plastic. His cause of death is unknown at this time, pending autopsy results. Now, what this story does not say is that since he went missing on February 22nd, somebody has been using his credit cards, maybe just one or multiple. There was nothing that I could find saying that they've been able to track that person down yet. This is a very sad ending. You don't expect a guy going there on business. We know sometimes, of course, cities can be dangerous, but to find out that he was found in an empty lot, and you can find pictures online of what this vacant lot looks like, and it looks just as you would imagine, that probably just want to avoid that area. It just kind of looks creepy. Maybe that's just my subconscious talking, being that I now know that somebody who was dead was there. But I would also urge you to not jump to conclusions too quickly. It certainly does seem, just reading it the way I have, that we could see a scenario where Nathan was walking home. He was walking back to his hotel, had a couple in him. At least he wasn't driving. And he came across the wrong person, the wrong people. They attacked him. They killed him. They took him to, this vacant lot, covered him up, and took all his stuff and took his credit cards and are now buying whatever on his dime. Certainly, that could be one way to interpret the information. That cannot be denied. But on the other hand, we also know how drunk people end up getting into issues all by themselves without any other help. And in fact, we talk a lot about that on Unfound. It's the anti-smiley killer hoax theory, that the reason that people go missing after going to bars is because it's hard to swim when you're drunk. It's hard to walk straight when you're drunk. It's hard to not avoid cars going down the street when you're drunk. It's a lot easier to hit your head when you're drunk. These are just facts. And so, at least at this time, I'm not ready to totally jump to the conclusion that this guy was murdered. Instead, what I might see a scenario is that he hit his head walking along, stumbling along, went into this vacant lot. Who knows what he was thinking? We know once we get hit in the head, depending on the injury, can make all sorts of weird decisions and weird choices. And then he dies there, bleeds out or something. We know head injuries, you hit your head, you can be fine for a few hours at least until the swelling gets too bad. And then somebody comes along, discovers his dead body. Some homeless person goes through his body, finds the credit cards, and decides to use them. This is the world that we live in. Now, what are the chances of each? I don't know. But it seems to me that of course, Baton Rouge is not New Orleans. New Orleans is a violent city. We hear so much about Chicago and some other cities in the United States where there's a lot of violence. New Orleans is right up there. Although population-wise, it doesn't even come close to Houston or Chicago, New York, LA. But still, a lot of violence goes on there. But this isn't New Orleans. So then we have to start thinking, if this was foul play, did Nathan just happen to run into the wrong person at the wrong time? Is there a rash group of incidents like this? Are a lot of people who are getting drunk at Happy's Irish Pub or other places in the area, have any of them been attacked? Have any of them died? Have any of them been accosted? Have any of them been carjacked? Have any of them been ripped off, attacked, assaulted, and their stuff taken away? I would have to know more about that before I'm ready to come to a firm conclusion as to what happened to Nathan. It's very sad either way. But my experience of 6.5 years tells me that too often in situations like this, when you read a story like this, the public very quickly goes to foul play. And then it turns out that it wasn't. Going back to the smiley face killer hoax, of course, some people call it a theory and some people actually believe it. I call it a hoax, but that's how that all got started. Because public in general doesn't understand that when you go out and you're by yourself and you get drunk and you're going to try to walk home or something, the odds of something bad happening to you just by you yourself greatly increase in contrast to if you were just sober. Exponentially increase. So really at this point, and we have to remember Nathan's body was just found this morning, although it is weird to me that, and maybe they even put some pictures out of who's been using his credit cards. I didn't find that. You'd think that they would be able to track this person down who's been using his credit card or credit cards fairly quickly. But they haven't. At least nothing that I saw in today's news says that. Maybe if we can get an idea of who's using his credit cards, that will then further help us decide what happened to Nathan. Of course, if the person has a very violent criminal record and that he just got out of jail days before Nathan disappeared, then that, of course, is going to push us in the foul play direction. But if we were to find out that the person who is using the credit cards is some 16-year-old who can prove that he or she wasn't even in the area at the time of Nathan going missing, and says, and they can prove that, you know what, I just found this wallet on the street. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have done this, but I did it anyway. Then maybe we need to look that this is some sort of unfortunate accident. It all depends. It will depend if they can track the person down, or people who are using Nathan's accounts to finance their own living expenses, whatever they're buying. I'm guessing usually when I think about something like that, I bet they're buying cigarettes. They're probably buying junk food. They're probably buying alcohol and things like that. That's probably what's getting rung up on Nathan's card right now. It also it makes you wonder. I know with the company that I have my ATM card, sometimes they call me and it's me using the card. They, for some reason or another, they think it's suspicious activity. I don't know if they're just, I don't know what the algorithm is that they use, but I'm using my own card and I'm getting called. So it seems weird to me that Nathan's card or whatever, maybe it was American Express or something, I don't know, that they would just allow this person to continue to use it. Wouldn't there be some like red flags or something going off? I guess not. I'm glad to know that my bank is keeping an eye on my accounts, that they have sort of program. If this happens, we got to call Ed in just to make sure that he's using his card. Because I remember just within the last few years, I went to get gas one time and my card wouldn't work. I'm like, there's plenty of money in there. What's going on? I call the credit card company, or it's not a credit card, it's an ATM. I don't have a credit card technically. And they say, well, we noticed some suspicious use on your card. And did you do this? Did you do this? Did you just? Yeah, that was all me. Oh, okay. Well, we'll hit this button here and you'll be able to use your ATM card again. Obviously, Nathan's financial institution isn't like that. Yeah, it's very sad, Carol. It's very sad. So sad about Nathan. Certainly is. Yeah. Twinkle says, Ed, what percentage of disappearances have alcohol or drugs involved? It all depends what you mean by the word involved. Are the alcohol and the drugs an element of the disappearance, or do they just happen to be in the body of the person when that person goes missing? I guess it depends what we mean by involved. Certainly alcohol and drugs can be the cause of a disappearance. This goes back to like the smiley face killer situation, but then that certainly would be different than somebody overdosing and other people covering it up. That's a different sort of involvement. It just, the word involved, it can be interpreted a couple different ways. I do have a classification, as you know, Twinkle. One of the 6 classifications of disappearances is drugs play a role. So sometimes, and what I mean by that, sometimes it might be the foremost role, like in a movie, you have your main character actor or something. And sometimes drugs play just a supporting role or a very small role. It just depends. As far as percentage goes, just how often do we talk about drugs for disappearances? Maybe 50% of the time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that is a drugs play a role type of disappearance. It could be a luring type of disappearance. It could be a man said type of disappearance. It could be it's a murder but disappearance. But just as far as talking about alcohol and drugs and addiction, it seems like it's 50% of the time. That doesn't mean that has anything to do with the disappearance. Maybe Bo Mann's disappearance is a perfect example. It very well may be that drugs could be involved, given that he used to be an addict. Maybe he was becoming an addict again. We just don't know. It's just kind of up in the air. It depends on how you look at his disappearance. Somebody could hear the facts of all of it and think the drugs are involved. Other people think it's not involved. Even though, yes, Bo was in a kind of shady area of LA just a couple hours before he went missing. Yes, he did. He was in an Uber that went to an address that just happened to have an addict Joe and a good living there. Still doesn't mean the drugs are involved. So it's tough. But I would say the topic comes up at least 50% of the time. Cherie, that happened to me to when I traveled to Colorado. I got flagged for being out of the air. You're talking about your credit cards or something, Cherie? Yeah, that is the sign that you have a very good institution. Their banking institution that's looking out for you, Cherie. That's good. All right, so that is Nathan Millard. Either way, very sad. Either way, easy for me to talk. I don't drink at all. Zero. Zero, 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 zero. Never been, in fact, I've never even been drunk or even had a buzz in my life. Back in the day, I might have a beer or two when I was in college or something, but if my blood alcohol level got above about 0.02, I would be surprised. I would be very surprised. I was a very slow drinker, even though I was only having 1 or 2 bottles of beer. Trust me, by the time I would get to the bottom of a bottle of beer, it would be warm. So I just can't put myself in the position of Nathan, and we really don't even know if he's drunk or not, but, he's on a business trip. He's in an Irish pub. I don't think it's a stretch to say when he left that pub that it's a good thing he wasn't driving. So there you go. Let me go back here and talk about a few unfound things. As I stated earlier, Eric, Shree, and I had a fantastic meeting on Saturday. We covered a lot of topics. One of the issues we talked about the most was the survey that went out to everybody on the email list in February. Such interesting answers. It's just there was certainly some surprises in those answers, things that I did not expect for the answers that I got, but it was very, very helpful. And if you are on the email list, you should probably expect another survey this month, and I hope you will take part in it. If you would like to be on the email list for whatever reason, if you'd like to take part in these surveys now that I'm doing, please email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. I will get you on the list, and you can take part in the next survey because I'm going to use this first survey to do the next survey to kind of follow up and kind of drill in a little deeper into some of the topics, because as I found out and talking to Eric and Sheree and looking at the results for myself, some of the questions still leave a lot of wiggle room and everything. So I just need to be more precise with some of the questions. I'm not saying that the questions are going to be the same. In fact, they're going to be very different, but I'm going to have to rephrase them and be a little more specific to get the answers that I not the answers that I'm looking for, but just to make sure I understand what everybody is saying. Ashley says, I never got an email. Are you on the email list, Ashley? That is the big question, Ashley. Are you on the email list? The only way you would be on the email list is if you actually signed up to be on the list. And also, if you think you are on the list, Ashley, email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Probably you'll be emailing me from the place that you want the survey sent, and I will get you on the list, or at least I'll be able to check. Do not put your email address in here because that will only cause problems for you. Do not put it here. So we had a great meeting. That is, I think, Sheree, what is that? The third meeting we had, the three of us, and I know I am getting a lot out of it. Something new we are doing here in the 6th or technically 7th year of Unfound. I probably should have started doing this a while ago. But like I said, I'm going to put together another survey, another poll, I guess you might call it, that will be coming out not this week, not this coming week, maybe next week, but certainly before the end of the month. Let's just say maybe around the 20th or something like that. I will have another survey prepared, and I hope got a decent percentage of people answering it. Maybe we can up it a little bit for the next one. Once again, if you're not on the list, you won't get the email. So make sure you email me at Unfound Podcast, get you on the list, and you can take part in the next survey. How do you find your email? Well, I just, if you just email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. There you go. Thank you, Cherie. And I will get you on the list. I'm the one that has to put you on the list. Moving on, upcoming episodes, got a great month planned out. Due to myself, Emily, and certainly with Cherie's help. Cherie did a fantastic job in coming up with a great idea for an interview, and that interview is going to be taking place on Wednesday night. So pretty much all of March is already planned out for the episodes that will be coming out. It's going to be a very, very interesting month. Of course, at the end of this live show, I'll be telling you what we'll be doing this Friday, but quite, I guess what I would say, a very eclectic month. But the person that Cherie contacted, who I got to speak to last week, who I'm going to interview on Wednesday night, Cherie, I don't even know. I didn't even ask her. I'll probably ask her on Wednesday night when I interview her. I really don't know if she's been interviewed before. I really don't know. You'd think she would be given her position, but I don't know. I just get the feeling from her that this is not something that she's been asked to do. And so, Cherie says, I've not seen an interview. So Unfound is going to be first. And I think for all of you, it's going to give some great insight. I don't want to blow it. I don't want to jinx it. I'm going to keep it a mystery for now. It is, it's like somebody that's right in front. I guess, Cherie, what we would say, what? It's somebody who's like right in front here. But we just never occurred that maybe she might want to be interviewed. So that's what's going to make it so interesting. And we're going to get to go kind of behind the curtain on something, and it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for Wednesday night. Hello, Charlotte. What's going on? All right, Twinkle's getting out. Okay, Twinkle. Good night. Yeah, Charlotte, where you been? Yeah, well, don't erase that comment, Cherie. We don't want to give it too much away. You can delete that comment. That might be letting the cat out of the bag, Cherie, at this point. Want to keep it a mystery at least for a couple weeks. All right, so we got some fantastic episodes coming up, and I'm really excited about this March. And I how much I like to work at least a little bit ahead. Not way ahead. The last thing I like doing is interviewing somebody and then the interview doesn't come out for 2 or 3 months. As you all know, that is not how I do my business. I like to do an interview just within a few weeks, 2 weeks at the most of the episode coming out, to keep everything fresh. Thank you, Cherie. No criticism there, Cherie, but you know how I like to, this is it's as all of you can tell, it's not a disappearance. It's something else. But we just want to keep it on the down low for now, because I think that might have given too much away. All right. I'm continuing to work on the Teachable podcast. Many of you have seen that I'm working on the logo and of getting a lot of critiques of it. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people, some people thought, well, I don't know, what are you trying to do with that, Ed? But overall, it's been very positive. However, I do think that the logo for this new Teachable podcast, it's going to be on how to start your own podcast. It's going to be right from The very day you think that you want to do a podcast, all the way up through monetization and marketing and everything else, it's going to be everything. And I was actually working on it today for a couple hours, recording everything. But I need a little logo for it. And so I decided, what about turning myself into a microphone? So a microphone with long hair and everything. And I think what is not clear on the logo right now is that the little body and everything is a microphone. So I'm going to have to work on that. And that is work that I'm doing, by the way, on my own using Canva. So I'm going to continue to tweak it a little bit. But so far, everything's going great. The recording's going great. I really like the content. But I need like I said, I need a little logo. The title of this teachable course is How to Podcast Better Than Anyone. And so it's not true crime specific. It's not any particular type of podcasting specific. It's just for anybody, whether it's sports or movies, video games, history, whatever else. You can use this course to start doing a very high quality podcast. And Lord knows I could have used this course when I started out. So I've been working on this in my spare time, got a lot done this past weekend and today. And so this is what you're seeing there. And I appreciate everybody that has offered their opinions on the logo and what should be done with it. And I know in the end, probably it's one of those things. I don't know if I'm going to make everybody happy with it. However, I tweak it here and there. But I want it to just be, podcasting, despite Unfound covering serious topics every week, podcasting should be something that is enjoyable. And even though it's very sad what we do here at Unfound, I do find it enjoyable. I do enjoy writing the episodes, really interviewing these people, trying to help these people out, recording it, and everything else. This is very, very enjoyable to me, even though I realize that what we're doing here is very serious. And I keep saying it, even though I find this enjoyable, I wish disappearances didn't exist. If they went away tomorrow, I would be perfectly fine, and I'll go do something else. Totally fine with it. Totally fine. But we also have to understand a lot of the podcasts that are out there aren't on serious topics. They're on video games. They're on comedy. There's a lot of more laid back topics out there. And so I have to design a course that kind of fits into all of that. So that's what I'm doing. And given that I've been doing this for 6.5 years, I do all of my own work. I do all the recording myself, the editing myself, the interviews myself, the writing myself, and everything, and the marketing myself pretty much, although I've gotten some help here and there, certainly recently. I think I'm in a position to talk about all of it in educated terms. I know what I'm talking about. So, and as I've discovered, there is no real good course out there. You can watch some YouTube videos and everything else, but they really, really don't get into the specifics of really what you need to know and how you need to prepare and how you need to write it and record it and figuring out how often you should be podcasting, how to find the time and all of that. Nobody gets into any of that stuff. But I think that is something that a lot of people will find helpful. So that's what I'm continuing to work on, and we'll continue to work on the logo a little bit. I'm hoping that this course will come out in April. It's just I don't want to rush it because I do want to do some marketing for it before it's available, doing some Facebook ads and Google ads and things like that. Carol asked about Nathan Millard. Why would he have been wrapped up in plastic? I just don't know. Carol, I think we could go either way. Why would Nathan wrap himself up in plastic? Moreover, why would anybody wrap him up in plastic? It's not a very good way to hide somebody. If he was, I guess what I'm thinking here is, if he was attacked, then why leave him in a place where people would find him? That might go against the foul play theory. I don't know. It's just hard to say. We try, Carol, we try to reason these things out. We just don't know. What I do know is when you have head injuries, we do tend to do things that we don't realize we're doing. Like with hypothermia. Hypothermia is a perfect example. You're all wrapped up. You're out there in the cold weather, and then something happens, and your body you start shivering. You get colder and colder and colder. And at some point, the brain goes the opposite direction. So people who suffer from hypothermia end up taking their clothes off. Makes no sense, but that's what happens. So I just don't know. I don't know if there are enough facts at this point, Carol. I realize a lot of people are just going to decide, well, somebody killed him and wrapped them up. And I just don't think it's that clear at this point. My opinion. All right. Charlotte. Okay. Charlotte and Kathy talking back and forth. Totally fine. Let's go to another national news story. And that is the Alex Murdaugh trial. I'm a little bit hot about this. Probably all saw, I know most of you have been following this trial. It was on TV. I know, Cherie, you've been following it. Other people, listeners, have really, really been following it. And last week, he was found guilty. And was there really any doubt? Cherie, once again, I did not watch every day of it. I hardly watched any of it. Saw little clips here and there. I read some about it. But I have to be honest with you, just in the partaking of the news on it, the reporting on it that I saw, just looking at factually from a person myself who covers disappearances, and a lot of those could be murders and everything else, it didn't seem to me there was much doubt that he killed his son and wife. Now, and I have it even written here in my notes off to my left. I mean, really, if Steve Pankey was guilty, as that jury found him in Greeley, Colorado back in October of 2022, then Alex Murdaugh was guilty times like infinity. Right? Now, what ticks me off is that this is a perfect example, though, of the reporting on the trial of how the media likes to gaslight all of you by creating drama where drama doesn't exist. They love to do that. And I think in the 21st century, this has become what is known as the hot take. And what that usually means is somebody coming out with an opinion that is against the grain and that it's against popular thinking and everything else. But the person is doing it just because saying what everybody else is saying, even though that may be true, isn't going to get any attention. It's horrible. This is what social media has caused everybody to do these days. Everybody so badly wants, to find that niche, and it's very difficult. Nobody knows that more than I do. But just to go into some of these, now you have to remember, this jury decided he was guilty in a matter of hours, not days, hours, very quickly. I mean, for a trial that took this long, they came to that decision pretty quickly. But allow me to read some of the headlines that have been written over the weeks about the trial. Remember, the jury itself found him guilty, and as Cherie is saying, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Thank you, Cherie. You're doing a fantastic job tonight, making me look good by knowing stuff like that. Thank you. And Marty's saying lightning fast. Here are some of the headlines, and these were all headlines by legal experts, quote unquote, on the news channels. Because I went and looked this up today. This is why it takes so long for me to put the information for the live show together, because I go and look at this. A legal expert says Alex Murdaugh is outsmarting prosecutors while he is on the witness stand. That is what a legal expert said. Next headline. I'm not showing any favoritism. I'm not here to call any channel, but host dissects Alex Murdaugh's testimony in double murder trial. What he's doing there is brilliant. Legal expert on a news channel out there said that. Remember, jury decided he was guilty in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Whereas, as I just read that, but somehow these legal experts, quote unquote, were saying Alex Murdaugh's testimony, double trial, brilliant. He's fooling the prosecutors. He's fooling them. Next headline. I would bet my house on a hung jury in the Alex Murdaugh trial. That's a quote from a legal expert on a news channel out there. Also, once again, Murdaugh prosecution may end up with a hung jury. Legal expert. Next headline. Here's what legal experts say could help or hurt Alex Murdaugh from his testimony. Another headline. How the prosecution has tried to overcome a lack of direct evidence. As you know, I have a huge problem with the media in the United States. I don't care if we're talking about politics, sports, movies, anything else. I have a huge problem with it, and it's one of the ways that I try to make Unfound. I'm in the media too. I'm a reporter. Okay, that's what I do. And I want to tell all of you, I try to avoid all of that. What they're doing there, in my opinion, they're either really not legal experts or they're just lying to you. It is disgusting. The gaslighting that goes on. The only reason, in my opinion, I don't know any of these people who made these quotes. I know none of them. I don't watch any of them either, though. You should know. I think they just say those things to get people's attention. That's what I think. And this is what drives me nuts about the media in the United States these days. This is all too common. In all aspects. I don't care what side of the spectrum on anything you're coming from. It's all way too common. They love to rile you up. They know how to push your buttons. They know how to make you tune in by saying things that are obviously wrong. How is it that I could just casually see what was going on with the Alex Murdaugh trial? I'm thinking, and I have talked about it before on this live show. How could I be thinking if this is a hung jury or they find him not guilty? I mean, then in my opinion, it's like the OJ trial. They just don't want to find him guilty. He's guilty, but they just don't want to do that for whatever reason. That was the only way I saw that this guy was going to get off. But it does remind me, and that I don't like to swear. It's PG rating, but I'm going to have to do this quote. It comes from one of my favorite movies of all time called Network, which is about the media. And that was back in 1977 that movie came out. And that movie is more true now than anybody ever thought it would ever be. But there is a line in it by the main character, Howard Beale. And I'm not here to get into the plot of the movie. All of you, I don't know if it's on Hulu or Paramount Plus or wherever it is, you should watch it if you haven't. It's a spectacular movie, and it will make you doubt all media all the time. And not from like a conspiratorial point of view, but maybe make you realize that reporting and everything is all about they're willing to lie to you to get more viewers. Let's just put it that way. They'd rather lie and get more viewers than tell the truth and have less viewers, because lying, you can just make up everything. And like, as I've been saying, gaslight people, make them paranoid, make them nervous. The media loves to do that. I don't do that. But this line from Howard Beale, and I'm going to be swearing here in a few seconds, so if you're watching with your children, you maybe want to cover their ears for a few seconds. You know, I don't like to do this, but to make my point, I have to do this. There is a line that Howard Beale says in this movie, and he's saying it about the media. They will tell you any shit you want to hear. And that's what we have in the media these days. That's what we have. You know, and of course, one of the problems I have with true crime specifically is too many people are drawn to the sensationalism and all that. So once again, it's not something that we do here. You know, appealing to your emotions, getting you riled up, getting into your paranoia, all of these things. That's not what we do here at Unfound. Now, you may say, well, you know, Ed, look what you said about Steve Pankey. You thought it was going to be a hung jury, and you got it wrong. Some big differences. Some big, big differences. First of all, husbands are more likely to kill their wives than strangers miles away are likely to kill girls they don't know. That's one of the reasons that I thought that there would be a hung jury in the Steve Pankey trial. To this day, prosecution never put Steve Pankey on that street at that time. Whereas, obviously, with the Alex Murdaugh trial, with this video that it seems Alex didn't know was being made, his son was videoing, and it was like 4 minutes before the wife and son were murdered. That's a big difference between the Steve Pankey trial and the Alex Murdaugh trial. That's just one example. So that's the reason I came to my reasoning for that. Now, I was wrong, but I also believe that the jury got that wrong with Steve Pankey. The difference is that these people, these quotes that I just read here, they're saying how brilliant Alex Murdaugh was, and it could be a hung jury. And now they're going to turn around in their shows and say, oh, this was the beginning. This was a open and shut case. That's the difference. None of them are going to say that they're amazed or anything. No, it's going to be something totally different. It's horrible. As you know, I don't watch any of this stuff. I only go and read it when to make points on this live show. I don't know how any of you partake in any of it. Any of it. I don't care if it has to do with true crime, sports, politics, anything. I don't know how any of you do any of it. Me. But he's found guilty. He's going away. Some people were wondering why he didn't get the death penalty. I don't know. Do we really want that? Doesn't everybody just want to see him suffer for what he did? And I don't know what the standard is for the death penalty or anything else in South Carolina, but this is what passes for legal experts today. And I will admit, I got the Steve Pankey trial wrong. I think I can surely explain my thinking much better than these people can. But you also have to remember, I'm not really a legal expert. I'm a disappearance expert. I didn't go to law school. I don't study the judicial system. We really don't talk about trials here at Unfound because nobody's been bringing to justice. And of course, a lot of these disappearances, there's no foul play anyway. But these are legal experts. People who have been judges, people who have been attorneys, defense attorneys, prosecutors, and everything else. And these are the things that they are saying. They're just saying it to gaslight you. And I just wish more of the American public would recognize that. So let's see what's, thank you, Lightning Fast. Charlotte, I've followed the Murdaugh case for years, and I was sure all along that Alex was guilty. Sheree says he never outsmarted anyone, never brilliant. Sheree, watch the interview with the 22-year-old juror on Law and Crime to see how far ahead reality was from Alex. How far, yeah. Kathy, Sheree, complete garbage about Alex Murdaugh testifying. The real, I saw one that said something like Alex Murdaugh guilty. Did the jury get it right? I mean, really? Yeah, exactly. Thank you, The Real. And you're seeing that in Australia. Thank you for making my point. Good for you, The Real. Sheree says, so true, Ed. All attention getting because they have have to compete with the bots that are now writing their articles. So they have to seem controversial for someone to pay attention. Yes. And what I would say is if bots are your competition, then probably you've been half-assing your job for a long time. If you're worrying about that, then probably you don't deserve to have that show and everything anyway. Dare I say it. Charlotte, there's a new show on ABC on Thursday nights called Alaska Daily with Hillary Swank. That's about a small-time newspaper. That's about reporters and is really good. Well, that's fiction. Thank you, Charlotte. Marty says the earmuffs. Marty. Cherie, both cases were circumstantial, but Alex was proven to be there by video evidence and later his own confession. That never happened with Steve. That's right. I mean, we could talk about Steve Pankey changing his story once he got up on the stand for the first trial, but it never had anything to do with the disappearance of Janelle. Never had anything to do with him saying, I wasn't on the straight. Oh, wait, I was. He never said anything like that. Never did anything like that, which should have made people suspicious. It didn't. Why did that jury find him guilty? I got to be honest, and I have nothing against Janelle's family and everything. I just think that they just wanted to put it away. People in there had been hearing about it for years. They felt sorry for Janelle's family, and somebody had to pay, and that was Steve Pankey. That's still my belief. Sheree says he didn't get the death penalty because of the family's legacy. And like you said, do we really want that? Yeah. Charlotte says the boat crash was so horrible. And what the Murdaugh family of attorneys did at the hospital after the crash was so criminal. I guess if you believe in karma, karma snapped back really fast in this situation. Kathy agrees. The Murdaugh trial was the media's cash cow for so long. Any articles casting doubt over the verdict are an attempt to write more mileage out of it. You're getting it, The Real. You are certainly now understanding. You're right. You're totally right. You're totally right. It's the joke that I used to make about Tiger Woods. When he kind of wasn't golfing for a while, he hurt himself. And of course, we know what happened with his wife and all of that stuff. And he wasn't golfing for a while. Here is what golf writers, like I said, this happens in other parts of media as well as reporting as well. And because I follow ball golf, I saw this at the time. Tiger Woods was not golfing at all. Still, every golf article was about Tiger Woods. It would be like, well, if Rory McIlroy wins the Masters, how will Tiger Woods feel about it? I mean, that's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but they were all like that. Trying to get the miles out of something. Because Tiger Woods, yes, certainly you write an article about Tiger Woods and it's going to get a lot of eyeballs, but is it really news? Is it really that important? And if you go back, I think I was doing this. This was when Facebook, I think I was on Facebook. There was a time now back then, and I don't know if I ever seen it come up on my memories on Facebook, but I would write jokes about it. I would write jokes about that very topic regarding golf. Rory McIlroy had Fruit Loops for cereal for his breakfast this morning. Let's go to see what Tiger Woods thinks about that. Doing anything they can to put Tiger Woods in an article. It's disgusting. And this is kind of like with I think your point you're making about The Real about it as well. It's so horrible. And, I'm sticking to and trying to stay in my lane regarding all of this, regarding true crime. And this, of course, this is true crime, the Alex Murdaugh trial. My problem is too many true crime hosts, just not regular 24/7 news channels, but too many podcasters do it, too many YouTube channel, all desperate for their shares and clicks and everything else. And it's not really news. They're just saying something because they know it's going to get attention. Now they're saying they might go after Buster next for the Smiths boys' death. I don't know. Yeah. Charlotte, yes, Marty. I hope that his family gets justice. Same for the housekeeper. So that's all I really have to say about the Alex Murdaugh trial. He's guilty. He did it. He shot his wife. He shot his son. My reasoning, and it was, to me, there was never any doubt. And the reason he did it is because he's a scoundrel. He is a very, very bad person. Has been one for a long time. Was ripping his law firm off. It was going to come out, and he didn't want his son and his wife to find out about it. He was going to be embarrassed. He might have been afraid he was going to get divorced and all these things. That's why he killed them. And then he tried to make it look like somebody tried to kill him and everything else. Horrible, horrible person. Not exactly maybe Adolf Hitler horrible, but you know what I mean. And to think that he's brilliant. He was just brilliant up on that stand. I mean, just so brilliant. It's disgusting. It's unethical. It's immoral. It's not illegal. But the way these people treat these things, it's so immoral. It's so bad. I think they're going to find, Marty says, I think they're going to find a lot of horrible things. Could be. I think he felt he was untouchable. Yeah, that could be. Alex has never been anything but a well-dressed liar. True. Moving on. I love that topic, though. I could do a lot of time just on that. On the topic of media and how news is, you just have to believe me. I really try to be self-critical on things, but as you know, when I started Unfound, one of those things, we're not going to do any sensationalism. Now, unfortunately, maybe I've gotten caught up in some sensationalism, some with the Steve Pankey trial, a lot with Tom Brown, but that was surely not my intention. And really, that sensationalism was caused by other people, and kind of just got wrapped up in it for a little bit because I just happened to cover Tom Brown's disappearance and some other things. It was not because I started it. So, moving on, let's, what do I want to talk about next? You should know, this is something I found out today, going in a completely different direction, that the trial of Michael Turney is supposed to start in April. We know disappearance of Alyssa Turney. Of course, there is a podcast out there hosted by her sister. Her sister was on Unfound. It seems like forever ago, but that was probably 2018. I think it was certainly before my mother died, sometime in 2018, that she was on to talk about Alyssa's disappearance. Well, I was told today by a very good source that trial is starting in April. Michael Turney is going on trial, even though it seems, to my knowledge, that Alyssa's remains have not been found. If we believe she is dead, to my knowledge, nothing has been found to show that she is deceased. But I got it on good authority that that's going to be happening. And this is one, I guess, that we've been waiting for a while. And in fact, on some of the update episodes, you've heard me say, is this really going to happen? Are they really going to go to trial against this guy, even though there are no remains, there's no body or anything? And I've had some doubts. Here you go. It seems like it's going to happen. And when it does, we'll see if the sensationalist come out again. I don't know if this is going to get the attention that Alex Murdaugh trial is, but this certainly is going to be a big thing in Arizona. Certainly, because this has been a long time coming. I think that Alyssa's sister has done a fantastic job keeping Alyssa's name out there and doing all the media that she's done with her own podcast and everything. So a lot of people know about this in Arizona, and I'm sure a lot of eyeballs are going to be on this. We'll just have to see what happens. I'll be very interested to see how the prosecution goes about proving that Alyssa is missing due to Michael. It's going to be very easy to think that he did it. I think a lot of people believe that. I think I could even be convinced of that. But, one of the issues is we haven't heard Michael's side of the story. Maybe he doesn't have one, which will, of course, hurt him. Does sound like a weird guy with the what was it, the manifesto and all these things, if you remember that. But that's going to happen, and I will be talking about it when it does. Moving on, Dylan Rounds. This is, of course, an Unfound Now that I did, what was it, May or June of last year. You remember, this is a young man working by himself, doing some farming, and he went missing. And you remember after that, some guys were charged with, having guns they shouldn't have, and a lot of people believe that Dylan was murdered. I had my doubts. Well, story out just within the last few days. A man has been charged with murder in the case of Dylan Rounds, a 20-year-old Eastern Idaho native who has been missing for 9 months. James Brenner, 59, is charged with 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of abuse or desecration of a human body. I'll come back to that. Charges were found this past Friday, March, what would that have been? 3rd, and in Brigham City, Utah. Brenner has been in the Box Elder County Jail since being arrested on firearms violations last June of 2022. He was squatting on property near Dylan's farm when the young man disappeared. Justin and I would like to thank everyone for the support you've shown us as we focus on finding answers in the disappearance of Dylan. Candace Cooley, Dylan's mom, told EastIdahoNews.com in a statement Friday. James Brenner has been listed as the official suspect since July 2022. The charges are based on solid evidence that has been released by Box Elder. We ask you to continue your thoughts and prayers for justice for Dylan and that we can bring him home. Dylan was farming in the desert town of Lucin, Utah, when he vanished over Memorial Day weekend, so at the end of May of last year. His grandmother spoke with him on May 28th, and nobody has had heard from him since. There has been no sign of Dylan anywhere, and no activity on his cell phone or bank account, according to his parents. Cooley says Dylan's body has not been found, but they remain optimistic he will be recovered soon. East Idaho News will update this developing story as we learn more. I will be honest with you. There you go, Mark. That's what I'm reading you, Mark. Great minds think alike. I want to come back to this desecration part. And let me read that again. James Brenner has been charged with 1 count of aggravated murder and 1 count of abuse or desecration of a human body. My guess is that covers a lot of different things that can be done with a human body after the person dies. I guess we might be open to the idea that if this actually did happen, did James Brenner, once again, not to be morbid, but cut Dylan up and go bury the parts in a variety of places? What else could there have been? Did he try to burn Dylan? Being that we covered disappearance like that at the end of last year up there in Minnesota, where at least I came to the conclusion that these 2 people who went missing together actually did die in their own house fire and were turned to ash. But could it be that? If that is the situation, that's going to be hard to prove. If James Brenner successfully did that, that seemingly was the way that those 2 guys killed or got rid of Tara Grinstead's body, by burning her. I'm still not sure if I believe that or not, but that seemed to fly with prosecutors in Georgia. Concern, even going back to Alyssa Turney's case, is when you don't have a body. We know. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've discussed this before. One of the reasons that all of these guilty people are walking around, and when I say guilty, we know the people we're talking about in some of these disappearances, the reason they're walking around is because prosecutors are afraid to go to trial without a body. The issue I have is that, just to draw a comparison, it's much more obvious to me that Angela Green, which seems to be the example I always use, simply because of what her husband did after she went missing, all the things he said. It's much more obvious to me that her husband killed her than this James Brenner, 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 killed Dylan Rounds. But it seems they're going to go to trial with Dylan Rounds' murder committed by James Brenner. And still, Angela Green's husband is still walking around a free man. These are things that are hard to understand. And so that's why when I read this, I start thinking, is this really going to happen? Are they just trying to put pressure on him, maybe get him to confess and to a lesser charge or something? It just, what kind of means? I mean, James Brenner and I guess these other guys were squatting on Dylan's land. I mean, that means they aren't men of means. What do they do? Where do they go? Did they use Dylan's own shovels or whatever to bury him? What did they do? These are things that all have to be figured out. Also, it seems to me that going back to his disappearance, Dylan was recognized as being missing fairly quickly. How did these guys do this in such a short amount of time to the point that they've pulled this off for 9 months? It's just, for me, not as clear cut. I realize maybe just from a simplistic point of view, it makes all the sense in the world. And maybe, as I say, oftentimes the simplest answer is the right one. The counter argument to that is that Dylan was out there all by himself, and who knows what was going through his head. There were no signs of violence there. It doesn't look like anything was stolen. So what exactly was going on? These guys seem like the types who would steal stuff. That's what I think of when I think of people squatting on other people's land. They're taking stuff. Doesn't seem like anything of Dylan's was stolen. So, still a big question mark in my mind. I don't, I'm not going to get into a deep debate with anybody about it. Maybe unlike Steve Pankey, him being found guilty, I think I'd be much more up for an argument like that than I would be with Dylan Rounds. Still have my doubts, though. Mark, I've read that even moving the body could lead to that charge. Yeah, okay. So it doesn't take much to get that charge against you. Okay, Mark. So maybe that explains it too. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Moving on. Got about 17 minutes left. Here was something that was very interesting to me. We know that Eric Franks' disappearance is still unsolved, even though his car was found. Well, we now know the name of the young woman, who discovered that Eric's car had gotten its oil changed there back in 2020. I will admit, I don't think I've ever known her name. I don't think I even knew that it was a woman who did it. I knew that the person was from California, and that was about it. But now everybody, I guess, maybe everybody's finding out like I am. We now know who she is, and so I'm going to read a little bit about her for all of you. And this is from Eric's mom. This month marks 12 years since Eric disappeared in Saginaw, Michigan. We know Eric was murdered. His remains have not been found, but his car was found in September of 2020. We owe a debt of gratitude to Randy Boffman. That's a woman named Rhandi, last name Bofman, a college student in Sacramento, California, who was studying criminal justice. She took an interest in Eric's case, put in a Carfax on his car, and much later received a message that an oil change had been done on the car. Brilliant. Just absolutely 100% brilliant. It's so good. I mean, I'm guessing that a lot of people have attempted to do this and it didn't pay off, but spectacular. She then notified me. I let my children know, and they followed up on Randy's tip. They located the car. They contacted Michigan State Police, who came to pick up the car for forensic testing. The link to the story of the car being found is below. There was a search done by Michigan State Police on the property where the car had been hidden in a garage owned by Gerald Rutledge, an elderly wealthy man who had hired Kendra Page Firmingham Carnes as his caregiver. Had Kendra been alive when the car was found, she surely would have been arrested. However, she in no way acted alone. The case is still open, and hopefully one day others will be brought to justice. With Randy's permission, I am sharing her graduation pics where she put Eric's picture and info on her graduation cap. She graduated with a BS Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice on May 21st of 2022. I feel sure she will have a very successful career in criminal justice. In addition to having Eric's picture on her cap, she had a pic of her grandfather who passed away when she was only 9. She also had a pic of her best friend, her close friend, Steven, who had passed away, and his son. Randy continues to keep in touch with me, and I appreciate her very much. I mean, so good. It's so good. I guess the big question is that Randy even had the VIN to the car in the first place. Of course, all of you remember, I remember it like it was yesterday when I heard that news. Total mind blower. Still probably the biggest surprise in the history of Unfound. Bigger than Tom Brown's body being found. Bigger than Esther Westenbarger and her car being found, although that was certainly a surprise too. But that car being in one piece, in running condition, being in somebody's garage and somebody else buying it, and then you can make the connection back to Kendra. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Like I said, I never knew who she was. I don't think in the conversations I had with Eric's mother and then his brother, or maybe a brother-in-law, after this all happened, I don't have it in any of my notes. Randy Boffman, the name, does not jump out to me at all as a name that I knew at one time and then forgot. I never knew it until I read this story a couple days ago. And so I thought all of you would want to know the name of this young woman as well. Certainly one of the greatest jobs of amateur sleuthing, I would say, in the 21st century. Now, we know there's those people out there with DNA and everything, but this, to me, is harder and more magical than any of that. Because forensics, it's just accepted and everything. That somebody, out there, a young woman like that, saw through all of that and thought, you know what, if I keep putting this VIN in there, maybe we'll get lucky. And to keep at it, even though maybe time after time nothing would come up, to keep at it is so good. It's just so good. And I hope I've never spoken to her. I would love to talk to her sometime. If she sees this live show or somebody knows her, maybe I can get in contact with Eric's mother. I would love to interview her. And, do something that, of course, probably wouldn't be a 2-hour interview, but maybe 20 minutes or whatever it would take to cover the topic about how she even thought of doing that. Maybe I can do that and kind of make a special episode or something out of it. Just so all of you can see, behind the curtain a little bit, to see what was to hear what was going through her mind, getting involved. I think I'm going to try to do that. I'll put that on my list of things to do. But fantastic story. So good. Just crazy, crazy good. Where do I want to go next? I have about 11 minutes left. What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about this because this is This is a disappearance we've not yet covered on Unfound, although we've come close to covering it a couple different times. It's just that this missing woman's father, maybe not emotionally quite up to it still. Delaware County, Indiana. Nearly 10 years after a Muncie woman went missing after a family reunion, police have a woman in custody in connection with the case. On Wednesday, Delaware County Sheriff's Office said Sheila York was arrested in Asheville, North Carolina. While she does not face any charges directly tied to the investigation to Ashley Mullis's disappearance, she does face charges for what happened to Mullis's child after the disappearance. 27-year-old Ashley Morris Mullis was last seen in September 2013 by family and friends. No one has made contact with her since. Shortly after Mullis went missing, the department said her child, Jane Mullis, was taken to Florida by Sheila and her husband, Daniel. A probable cause affidavit filed against Sheila York details how the couple falsified records to keep the grandparents and Ashley's prosecutor's office said Ashley became pregnant with Jane while Ashley was married to another man and having an affair with Daniel York. Sheila York was allegedly not aware of this affair at the time. When Jane was born, the document said Ashley was separated from her husband. While Ashley's husband was aware of the affair, Sheila was not allegedly aware of her own husband's involvement in the affair. At the time, Ashley was living in a home owned by Daniel and Sheila York. The document said Sheila would come over to collect the rent from Ashley and would play with Jane. Often while collecting the rent, Sheila played with the child, Jane. Sheila York was playing with a child that she did not know at the time was her husband's, allegedly. It's certainly his, but I think she knew. Daniel York's love child with Ashley Mullis. While Ashley claimed Daniel was the father, the document said paternity had yet to be established. On September 19th, just a few months after giving birth to Jane, Ashley went to a family reunion. This is in 2013. When she left, she would never be seen again. For days, her dad would leave notes on her door after he didn't hear from her. It wasn't until October 14th, 2013, nearly a month after Ashley went missing, that the document states Daniel York was named as the father on the birth certificate. Less than 2 years later, Daniel and Sheila moved to Florida, taking Jane with them. The document reiterates that Daniel had never established paternity. The Florida address they used when they moved was a UPS store in Port Charlotte, Florida. I've been to Port Charlotte, Florida. That month, the document states Ashley's estranged husband filed a paternity lawsuit against Daniel York. The next month, Daniel York died. But the lawsuit went on. This is crazy. The document states that in both the paternity lawsuit and a lawsuit filed by Jane's grandmother seeking visitation, a lawyer representing Daniel claimed Daniel couldn't travel to Indiana for the case because he needs heart surgery. The document details how Sheila's adult daughter with Daniel moved to Florida to help the family after Daniel's death. A former office manager for Daniel's lawyer says she saw on Facebook that Daniel died and confronted Sheila's daughter about it, asking why they needed a lawyer when Daniel was dead. When this office person did that, the document states the daughter dropped to her knees and started crying, saying she didn't know her father was dead. However, when pressed, the document said the daughter stopped crying and admitted to knowing. It's so crazy. And like I said, we've tried to cover this disappearance a few times. This affidavit states that the daughter told the office manager that her family could not let Jane go back because, quote unquote, we have to keep her safe from those people. The office manager said the daughter was referring to her Jane's grandparents, Ashley's parents. When grandparents' lawyers attempted to bring up issues of fraud to the judge in the case, he never had the chance to appear before the judge. The document said that York's lawyer informed the judge that Jane was adopted through a Florida court. However, the document states Sheila Court committed multiple acts of perjury in the adoption case. Among the issues was lying about her address, how long she had lived in Florida, and saying Jane didn't have any relatives known to her. The document also said Sheila lied about not being involved in any litigation involving Jane. In October 2022, the document states that Daniel claimed back then that he had taken a paternity test and was the biological father of Jane. He died way back in like 2015. However, there's no evidence that the test was conducted while Daniel was still alive. The document states the test even has the date that the sample was taken from. Daniel was the same day that Daniel died. So allegedly, the day he died was the day he gave the DNA sample. The document said Sheila was being held in North Carolina on a $100,000 fugitive warrant before she would be transferred to Delaware County in Indiana to face charges of kidnapping and obstruction of justice. Mullis's daughter was remanded to the custody of the Department of Social Services in North Carolina. Ashley Mullis remains missing as of the time of this report. Crazy. So, just so you know the circumstances, and I know I'm running out of time, here is the circumstances of her disappearance, Ashley's disappearance back then. On October 22nd, Ashley Mullis attended a family reunion, although her parents did not. This is the last time anyone in her family saw her. At the time of her disappearance, Mullis was separated from her husband and seeing a married man named Daniel York Sr., a mechanic whom she met in 2012 when she needed her car serviced. He lent her a vehicle to drive and gave her a rental house to live in. The baby girl Mullis gave birth to a few weeks prior to her disappearance was supposedly Daniel's, and his name appeared on her birth certificate. It is unclear whether his wife Sheila was aware of the affair at the time. Photos of the Yorks are posted with the case summary. A few days after the family reunion, Mullis's father and brother were unable to reach Ashley on her phone. Her parents drove to her home and found it locked and deserted. What they found out is that Daniel had come in and taken everything out of it. They left a note on the door asking Mullis to contact them. She didn't, but a few days later, when her parents came back to the house to check on her, the note they'd left before was gone. They left a second note in its place and called York to ask if he knew where she was. According to Daniel York, Ashley told him she had decided to move to Virginia with $15,000 he'd given her. She had left her sons with her husband and her baby daughter with York and his wife. When Mullis's parents found out about this, they immediately reported their daughter missing. By then, 2 weeks had passed since anyone had seen her. And like I said, the story is that she goes missing, and like within a day, Daniel's going in there. Of course, it's his rental property, cleaning it out so somebody else can move in. And there's this regarding Daniel York. It's worth noting that prior to his death, Daniel York was considered a person of interest in the death of 22-year-old Heather Musick, Musick, whose body was found in a burned-out hotel room in Daleville, Indiana in 2010. Daniel had rented the hotel room, and after his initial police interview, he hired a lawyer and refused to speak with investigators further. That ends all of that. I think you can now see why we've made several attempts to cover this disappearance. It's just that Ashley's father has a tough time talking about it. But we've been close. Daniel York, horrible, horrible, horrible guy, just like Alex Murdaugh. And my opinion is his wife surely knew that he was doing this with Ashley and everything else. And you just do not know how long Ashley's parents have been trying to get this into a courtroom. And it's finally good to see that this is all happening now. I don't know if it's going to make it more likely that we can cover the disappearance or whatever. This is just about the custody and the kidnapping and everything of Ashley's daughter. But we'll see. Maybe this will get Dawn in the mood of doing an interview with Unfound to talk about all of this. But crazy. Of course, at its core, it's the man said type of disappearance, but all of this makes it so complex. All right. One more thing. No, I'm just gonna let that go for now. No, let's just go right to it. It's about quitting time anyway. This Friday, we haven't done one of these for you. I didn't get to talk about this woman who was found 31 years later. Maybe we can do that next week. I don't think anything's going to change there. Maybe I'll talk about that next week or not at all. I think all of you know about it anyway. But this Friday, we're going to do something we haven't done for a while. We're going to revisit an old episode of Unfound. And the one I picked out was the disappearance of Roy Gregory Brooks Jr. This is an episode that came out on February 16th of 2018. His mother was the guest. And this is a disappearance that happened on January 18th of 2000. So this disappearance is over 23 years old now. Greg Brooks was from Castleberry, Florida, which is like on the other side. So on the northeast side of Orlando. He went out. He went to get his paycheck at work. He went to cash it. Never seen again. And eventually, sometime later, his car was actually found in the Tampa area, not necessarily near where I live, but over on the kind of southeast area of Tampa. So essentially 2 hours away for where he lived and worked. And it was on the side of the road. The car looked like it had just been abandoned on an exit ramp. And Greg was never, we referred to him as Greg for the episode. He was never seen again. So we are going to revisit this disappearance. Of course, it'll be the original interview that I did with his mother, but there will be new commentary by me. New way to look at this. Of course, we all now have a lot more disappearance experience. So maybe you'll get to listen to this interview in a different light. I'll get to listen to it again, maybe critiquing my own interviewing skills from back at the time. And I'll have some new commentary. I'll probably also have a new intro and everything else. But the interview from 2018, of course, will remain the same. So we're going to revisit that. I like to do that. We do not forget about any missing person that's ever been covered on Unfound. And this is one way we show that. By once in a while, I guess you could call it a rerun, but it's kind of new in a way as well. So that's what you can look forward to this Friday, a re-airing with new commentary, but the original interview, the disappearance of Roy Gregory Brooks Jr., the original title of that episode was A Roadside Story. So that's it, man. Covered a lot tonight. A lot of Unfound news, a lot of some stories and things. I hope you all enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And you will hear me on Friday for this revisitation of the Roy Gregory Brooks Jr. episode from back then, his disappearance. And that's all I have for you tonight. There was a lot of other things I had on the agenda, just ran out of time. But thank you all for tuning in. Please give this production a thumbs up. Become a member of this channel. Recommend it to your family, friends. Maybe even recommend it to your enemies. And keep your head on a swivel. Cherie, thank you for moderating tonight. I'm out.